And that's another reason why many beginners avoid learning song. In this guitar tutorial for beginners, you're going to learn how to play the Police's Message in a Bottle. As you probably know, the song begins with that great riff played by Andy Summers, fantastic guitarist. Now, with the greatest of respect, that riff is way above your level. And that's another reason why many beginners avoid learning songs. But it's only difficult at the moment. And in this video, what you're learning is the backing, the rhythm. You are Andy Summers' backing guitarist. And for that, all you need are a few chords. Here's a quick look at the structure of the song. And basically what we have is the intro, that riff. Then we have a verse, then we have a pre-chorus, then a chorus. And this is basically it 3 times. There is an outro, and that's pretty simple. That's again just the riff played over and over again with Sting singing, sending out an SOS. And you can see there are some basic chords there. There's a G, there's an A, there's an E minor, there's C, there's D, there's G. I think I said G twice. And there's also probably the most difficult chord there, the B minor chord. And that change from B minor to G will probably push you right out of your comfort zone. But for now, let's check out the chords and how to play them, and also some alternative versions. If you're comfortable with those chords, then just skip to the main part of the lesson and have a look at the song itself. The B minor looks like this. This is the version that I use, and as you can see, I'm using fingers 1, 2, 3 and 4, and you are going to just play the top 4 strings. Use your 3rd finger, which is on the 4th fret of the D string. Try and use that to dampen the A string, and use your thumb to dampen the low E string. Now there is an alternative. You could try it like this, and you're only playing the top 3 strings, and the 1st and 2nd fingers are in the same position, but the 3rd finger is now on the 4th fret of the G string. And this is an okay version for beginners if you're having a lot of difficulty. But for me personally, I don't think it sounds as good. It sounds a bit too tinny. So on the screen now is the G chord, and there are a couple of ways that you can play this. The first way is the way that I play it normally, and I'm using the 2nd, 3rd and 4th string. Another way that you can do it is using your 1st, 2nd and 3rd, and this is also a pretty common way of playing it, and many beginners learn it like this. And the 3rd version is using all 4 fingers. Whichever way you play it will be great for the song, and one thing you will do is you'll be playing all the 6 strings. The diagram of the A major that you can see on the screen now is the way I play it, using fingers 2, 3 and 4. An alternative way of playing it is using fingers 1, 2 and 3. I prefer 2, 3 and 4, mainly because my 1st finger doesn't seem to have enough strength to play that D string for some reason. With both of those chords, you can play the top 5 strings. If you happen to hit the 6th string as well, it's not a big drama. It is a D major chord. This is a very common way of playing it, using the 1st, 2nd and 3rd fingers. And for this chord, you can actually play all the top 5 strings if you want. However, try to avoid playing that 6th string. It does make a bit of a difference, makes the chord a bit muddy. The C chord here, there are 2 possibilities. The one that you see on the screen now is one of the ways that I play it, using only the 1st, 2nd and 3rd fingers. The 6th string is generally dampened using your thumb. The alternative way of playing it is using all 4 fingers, and now you have your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string, and your 4th finger is on the 3rd fret of the A string. And this is a nice way of playing it as well. Here's the E minor chord. This is the version I use, using fingers 2 and 3. The alternative, which you can now see, is using fingers 1 and 2. And this is actually a better shape to use for this song. And I'll explain why when we get to that particular part in the song. So that's a quick look at the chords. If you want a fuller, more in-depth look at those chords, then here's a link to a playlist with full lessons for those chords. That B minor chords makes this song a little bit more difficult to strum. So what I recommend that you do is use a really simple pattern and just use downstrokes. I really need to cut those strings. Just use downstrokes. It'll help make the change a little easier, because you know, if you're only going down, 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 it's not much to worry about. You know, you don't need to be thinking, oh, the pattern has to change here, I need to use a different strumming, I need to put some accents on. Forget all that, just down, 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 and focus more on the changes from one chord to another. We will just do it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all you're going to be playing. There are 3 verses in this song, and the chord progression is the same all the way through, and you can see it now. So here's the first verse, and you can see the chord progression is B minor, G, A, E minor. It's that all the way through. In fact, this is also the chords that you will play underneath the riff that Andy Summers plays. So we're going to keep this slow and simple, and we're going to go from B minor to G to A to E minor, and this repeats a number of times, and you can see it there on the chart. Going from B minor to G to A, there's no easy way, there's nothing that keeps you anchored on the strings or anything like that. However, when you're changing from those chords, try not to move your hand too far away off the fretboard. If you're playing your A chord like me, like this, with 2, 3 and 4, when you go to the E minor, if you play it the same way as me, you're just going to keep those 2 fingers together and then move them over across to the next set of strings, the A string and the D string. And so there's not very much movement between those chords. And having those 2 fingers kind of grouped together makes life a little easier. The same also applies if you play your A like this with the first and second and third fingers, and you play your E minor like this with the first and second, then the same thing applies. Keep those 2 fingers together, and then you can just move them together to the next set of strings. On the other hand, if you play your A like me using 2, 3 and 4, but you play your E minor with your first and second fingers, this becomes a little easier, because you will keep your second finger on the same string, lift the other 2 off, and then put your first finger down onto the second fret of the A string. So this makes that change even easier. So putting it together, it will sound a little like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think those 4 chords, you can actually hear that riff. So you get the feeling of the riff, the diddle 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 diddle. You get that feeling just by playing those 4 chords. It's very distinctive. So we're going to play this together, and we're going to play it slowly. As I say, we're going to keep this simple. Keep your strumming hand using the down strokes, just like this. So keep it like that. Don't try and go faster. Don't try and change the rhythm. Focus more on this part here, getting the changes right. So I'm going to sing through this, just that first verse, just before we get to the pre-chorus. Just a castaway, an island lost at sea. Oh, another lonely day, no one here but me. Oh, me before I fall into despair. Now don't get discouraged if that change from B minor to G is sounding a little bit ropey at the moment. Give it a bit of time. The more you practice this regularly, the more you will impress on your muscle memory, and you will get this change sounding better and better every day. But you've got to practice, and this is a great song to practice too. If you want to play along to the song, you are going to need one of these things here. This is a capo, and you will put it on the 2nd fret like so, or however your capo works, and then you'll play exactly the same chords. You'll still be playing B minor, you'll still be playing G, you'll still be playing A and E minor, but this capo allows you to play in the same key as the Police play it, because the original chords are actually a little bit more difficult. It's C sharp minor, it's A, it's B, it's F sharp minor, and those chords are much more difficult for a beginner, and can be even more off-putting to play. So if you want to play along, get one of these things here. There's a link down below. Now from that first verse we go straight into the pre-chorus, and the pre-chorus could be split into 2 parts. Now the first part is the I'll send an SOS to the world. I'll send an SOS to the world. And what you're playing here, and you can see it in this progression here, it's just G for a bar, and then C, and then D. G for a bar, C, half a bar, and then D for half a bar. And that's repeated. And again, that's a very typical little progression. You'll hear it in many, many different songs. And it goes, and it sounds something like this. So at the end of the verse, so we'll just play one set of the verse chords, and then we'll go straight into the beginning of the pre-chorus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rescue me before I fall into despair. I'll send an SOS to the world. I'll send an SOS to the world. So the second part of the pre-chorus looks like this, and there you can see E minor C, E minor C, E minor C. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that someone gets mine. I hope that someone gets mine. I hope that someone gets mine. Now the thing is, as you can see, it's E minor C. Now this is where this version of the E minor, where you're using the 1st and 2nd string, becomes a lot better to use. Because if you see, here's the E minor. If you'll see that, what you're going to do is you'll take this finger off, take it off, keep that finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, and then to form the C, you're putting the other 2 fingers around it. And then the same will apply when you go back to E minor. Keep that finger on, take the other 2 off, put the 1st finger back there. And so that's quite good, because it really kind of grounds you on the fretboard. It really keeps you there so that you're not flailing wildly and going all over the place. And so in a way, so that's a better way than the version I use, where I've got these 2 fingers, but everything has to change. It's not a massive change, but it's, for a beginner, it can be a little problematic. Let me know if that helps. The chorus now, the message in a bottle part, and that's a whole bar of B minor, a whole bar of G, a whole bar of B minor, a whole bar of G, B minor and G, before 2 bars of E minor. And so again, we're using that B minor to G chord. We're really pushing that B minor to G chord change. And it's really going to work you hard. So a little tip for going from the G to E minor chord: if you play G like me with the 2nd, 3rd and 4th finger, what you're going to do when you play the E minor, and if you play it like me, take off everything except the second finger, and then put the third finger in the position there at the second fret of the D string. So you're just slipping it in just behind the second finger. And the same thing if you were playing a song that required G minor, the same thing will apply when you go back. But so from here to here, it's a little easier. If you're playing the G like this, and you play your E minor using the first and second finger, the same thing applies. Keep the first finger down, and then just slip the second finger behind that first finger for the E minor chord. So if you play it like that, or if you play it with all four fingers, it'll work. So let's put the whole pre-chorus and the chorus together. So play along with me from the G. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll send an SOS to the world. I'll send an SOS to the world. I hope that someone gets mine. I hope that someone gets mine. I hope that someone gets my message in a bottle, yeah. Message in a bottle, yeah. The second verse is exactly the same as the first verse, and it repeats that B minor, G, A, E minor, and then it goes again into a pre-chorus followed by a chorus. Now the only difference between this chorus and the previous chorus is that the E minor is extended for an extra 2 bars, and it's like a slightly quieter part in the song. But then from there it goes straight back into a final verse. And the final verse, exactly the same as the first and second verses. Then it's followed by a pre-chorus and then the chorus. From here we go straight back to the second verse. So at the end, that final chorus, you sing message in a bottle. You sing that part 4 times. And then you go 2 bars of E minor before the song goes back into the riff. And that's where you will be strumming the B minor, G, A and E minor part. And that just basically fades out. So you just keep going round it, keep going round it, keep going round it while you sing sending out an SOS. So the most difficult part of this song will really be the B minor to G change. That is probably the part that's going to push you to really, really work hard. But don't give up, really. If you give it a bit of time, give it a bit of practice, persistence is what you need, and you'll get there in the end. You really will, because we've all been there, we've all been beginners, and we've all had our difficulties, but we've kept going. That's what you need to do. If there are any songs that you'd like me to break down to make it as easy and as simple as possible, let me know down in the comments. And if you got value out of this video, how about subscribing, giving us a like? Thanks very much.